Good evening, hockey fans, and welcome back to this year's final edition of This Week in Wisconsin Prep Hockey. I'm Mike Hammond, along with Bill and Bill Berg Jr., Del Scanlon, and tonight our guest is Matt Carey. Gentlemen, it's good to see you guys.
Good evening.
Guys ready to hash over the state tournament?
Yep.
Oh yeah, me too.
Before we get started on the details, I have to say that in terms of competitive games, this was the best state tournament we've had in a while. There were no blowouts. There were a couple of games where the final score may have been a little bit lopsided, but all of the games were competitive. Every team down there gave it their all. It was a great tournament.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that too. I mean, I think it's like I pointed out, there was no running time in any of these games. Or would somebody like to correct me on that?
There was no running time in any of these games. You are correct.
I'm right for once. How about that? Let's just jump right in and talk about the state tournament Division Two and those semifinal games. Those it was a pretty good day for the state semis on Thursday, as it was Division Two in action.
Kicked off with
And
number one Tomahawk and number one New Richmond and number four Tomahawk. Tomahawk scored first, which probably surprised a lot of people. New Richmond got the next three, and then Tomahawk scored twice. So after the first period, that was a 3-3 hockey game, which again probably surprised a lot of people. Bad minute and 11 seconds for Tomahawk really kind of cost them the game in the second period. New Richmond got goals at 4:05, 4:22, and 5:16. So a minute and 11 seconds, they got three goals. Tomahawk got one back in that period, but that would be enough. They wouldn't be able to catch up after that. It ended up being 8-4 New Richmond, but the game was a lot more entertaining and closely played than you'd get from the score. It was a really fun game to watch, and I think Tomahawk probably turned some heads.
I would have to agree with you. I saw New Richmond in the sectional finals where they just wore down. It looked like they wore down the Amory Warriors, and Tomahawk being, probably the smallest enrollment school in the tournament.
Yes. Well,
And New Richmond being deep, one of the bigger Division II teams, I would have thought that New Richmond eventually was going to wear Tomahawk down, but that did not happen. In fact, the shots in the third period were 9-8, just one extra shot by New Richmond over Tomahawk in that period. I mean, Tomahawk went down. I mean, they stayed with them right to the end. It's just that unfortunate span where, they you said 3 goals in less than 2 minutes. That just doomed them.
And you have to consider Tomahawk the front runner for Section 2 next year. On their roster, they're losing 5 seniors. The two that are important to them for the most part are Caleb Dickens and Logan Seymour, who both had goals in this game. But they have 9 freshmen coming in next year. Their Bantam team won the 3A state tournament last weekend. They beat Thomas Sparta 10-1. They beat Hayward 12-0, and they beat Somerset 11-2 in the 3A state tournament. So they outscored their opponents 33-3 in the 3-game state tournament that their Bantams just played. So Tomahawk should be good in D2 for a while. Then move into the second game, unless anybody else has anything else to say for that one. River Falls, the 3 seed, took on number 2 seed Fond du Lac Springs, and that one was close right up until the end, with Springs taking a 2-1 win over the Wildcats in another game that probably turned some people's heads. Although if you were following the Big Rivers Conference at all this year, and the goaltending tandem that they had in River Falls probably wasn't terribly surprising. As Luke Lenihan had 38 saves, 2 goals against in this semifinal game. I mean, he did drop a clean shutout on Eau Claire Memorial earlier in the season.
Yeah, in this game, Fond du Lac Springs came out flying right out of the gate. And they really tested Linehan. They outshot River Falls 21-7 in the first period, but Linehan held his ground and it was scoreless after the first period. From then on out, the shots were pretty much even. They were even in the second period, and River Falls got an extra couple of shots in the third period. So they skated with them, stayed with them, but just had trouble getting the puck past Gertig for Fondy Springs, and eventually, Springs was able to get a couple of goals. Both two from Armani Fisher in that game. It was 1-1 after. It was scoreless after the first, 1-1 after the second, and Fisher got the game winner about 10 minutes into the third period.
Matt, you've seen River Falls a couple times this year. Anything surprising for you in that one?
No, not at all. I mean, their schedule's so tough for D2. I mean, they're a D2 team. They're playing some of the best D1 teams, Big Rivers Conference, even though they came home with no championships this weekend. I mean, it was the best conference in the state. So it wasn't a surprise to me. I've seen them multiple times, and they're good. Even when we did our previews, for playoffs, I thought River Falls had a chance. I really did, and they didn't surprise me. And much like Tomahawk, the year before, they won state. So they have a really good young team, and it's pretty rare to get two goaltenders that are high end, but they have a really good team. I think that the next couple of years, River Falls would be a team at D2 to be reckoned with. I really do.
We move to the D2 championship game between the defending champion New Richmond Tigers and the Fond du Lac Springs Ledgers, who had previously won 2 of the 4 Division II state tournaments. And if not for 2 minutes from hell in the middle of the second period, this game was another one that looked like it was going wire to wire, but there was a 2-minute stretch, mostly on a New Richmond power play in the second period, where New Richmond looked like they forgot how to play hockey. It was the damnedest thing I've ever seen. The game was just like evenly played and back and forth up to that point. They got a power play and it was just a mess. Austin Westergaard ended up with a shorthanded goal. And then just a few seconds after their power play ended, Springs scored again, not paying attention to Gabe Braun, basically. And he was giving River Falls fits in the first one, too, where as soon as Springs grabbed the puck in their defensive zone, he was out of the zone and behind the defense looking for a pass. And he got one. And then just another 30 seconds after that, Isaac Sobel scored again. So, it was 2 minutes and 7 seconds. Springs got 3 quick goals in a game where they were outshot 43-27. Just for that one little hitch, New Richmond kind of forgot how to play hockey.
Yeah, that was surprising. I really was. I was totally surprised with that. Like you said, it was just a couple minutes, really dictated the outcome of the game. I mean, it's just. But you know what? Springs has got some really high end players. A few of their guys can score. Westergaard, Braun, yeah.
Yeah, and Springs had a good regular season, and they were a strong team. They were one of our top 6 teams, I think, all season. But getting Braun back, who had a shoulder injury and missed most of the thing, it's like a strong team in the NHL, a strong team picking up a top end forward at the trade deadline. All of a sudden their team got better just at the end of the regular season heading into playoffs, and Braun was just on fire at the end of the regular season and during the playoffs. He was just a scoring machine. So getting him back, that just added an extra bullet into their gun there, and they took advantage of it.
Yeah, I mean he only got 7 regular season games this year. Last year as a sophomore in 24 regular season games, he had 46 points. So yeah, getting him back right at the end of the season and then for the playoff run was huge for them. Because that was their, I mean, they had the players to score goals, but they didn't score a ton of goals this year during the regular season, and getting him back for the playoffs. So yeah, it was like a trade deadline acquisition in pro sports.
Yeah, and that allowed them to spread out their forwards and really give them two scoring lines rather than just one scoring line. You know, that one addition just made a huge plus in their game.
Yeah,
Springs
Guys,
goalie, Springs
what-
goalie played great too. I mean, he really did. I mean,
yeah. I mean,
he-
43 shots from New Richmond is probably the most he's seen in quite a while.
Okay, guys, I didn't get to see this game on Saturday, but as I'm looking at the score sheet today and stuff, kind of going over it, I was actually surprised to see that there were 19 penalties in this game. How did that affect the flow of the game as you guys watched it?
well, the first penalty I can't remember. Was that the Bourne Bonneman? Was that the?
Bonneman,
Yeah,
yes.
Gauman
Yeah,
with the charging.
yeah. That I think that did impact the penalties because I mean, you take one of your best players off, and I don't recall, but that was kind of like a checking too hard penalty. Because he's a big kid.
Well,
So it made an impact.
okay. I say it was a charging penalty for 2 minutes, but I mean, it just seems to me, I don't remember seeing many championship games where we end up with almost 20 penalties called throughout the game.
Well,
Yeah.
but it never felt like cheap. Like we saw the game last year where, Mosinee and Oregon had a penalty fest, and Mosinee was getting cheap and chippy. It never felt like that. This was just two teams playing hard, and they had the wrong set of refs out there for that kind of style. But it never felt to me. It never felt like a bad game, and there was a fair amount of 4-on-4 in this game, which was really fun.
Well, and that's all, all I was asking, as if I wasn't, implying that I thought it was, but to hear you say that, that you thought that, it didn't feel like a chippy game or anything like that, that really makes you happy to hear, especially in that level of play.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
I mean-
it wasn't a dirty game like Bill said at all. It's just that, and I'm not even going to say the wrong set of referees. There was one referee in particular who was calling a very tight game, and our favorite hockey official, who for whatever reason did not have a game in this tournament, which is an injustice that we have to mention, on our podcast here. But she said it was his final game as a ref, and I don't know whether he had a quota to meet, before he could officially retire. But he was calling stuff that nobody else was calling during the entire tournament. At one point, I asked Nikki, I mean, is he trying to ruin this game or what? But it never, I mean, other than, being a little too tight on some of the penalties, I don't think it never really felt like it was throwing off the flow. I mean, maybe if you're New Richmond, maybe it did throw off the flow of your game and your line rotations and that. But I didn't really think it seemed to affect things that much.
Okay, thank you. And as I said, I wasn't trying to insinuate anything. I was just, I mean, it was called fairly even, 10-9 on penalties. You couldn't ask it to be called, any more even than that. So.
Well, you don't ask for games to be called evenly. I mean, and counting the penalties does not mean the game was called evenly. And that's another subject, but we'll skip that for now.
Thank you.
I could go off forever on that one.
So with the win, Springs picks up their third state championship in 5 years of Division II hockey, and we'll have more to say about that when we get to the listener Q&A section of the podcast a little later.
I was wondering when we were going to bring that up. Okay.
Hey, the one thing I wanted to bring up, guys, is big congratulations to the coach of Springs. He's a first year head coach if I have my facts correct, and to come in as a first year head coach and win a state championship. Congratulations to him.
Guys, as I was looking at this New Richmond Fond du Lac Springs, and Dell, you mentioned about the penalties. I went back to the third period when things started to get a little rough and tumble, and I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 penalties by Fond du Lac Springs in that third period. I guess what my point is New Richmond had some chances in the third period, power play chances, and they weren't able to capitalize.
Well, I mean, they took 16 shots in the third period, and Brandon Gertig turned them away. He had as Matt mentioned earlier, he had a phenomenal game.
Ready to move on to the girls?
Yes, sir.
All righty. Move on to the girls. Let me get them up here. I'm having all kinds of problems here, guys, just with I don't know if it's just the weather or what, but
I will go for you, MJ. The girls tournament started with the number 1 Central Wisconsin Storm and the number 4 Cap City Cougars, and if you invert those two rankings, you get the final score. Storm won 4-1.
You know,
Go ahead, Del.
you know, we had an injury at the beginning of this game. It was great to hear it once the game was over that she was actually texting her teammates and everything and stuff. So, you know, able to be texting with her teammates. She had
So we at least she had use of her thumbs.
well, she before she got off the ice, we saw that she was moving her feet and everything. But you know, err on the side of precaution. You know, they took her in and looked at her, and you know, talked to the coach after the game, and you know, so she had already been texting with her teammates. And we got the one nice thing about it was we did get to talk to the coach of the Central Wisconsin Storm a little bit after the game about what the delay effect, you know, because when they did bring him back on the ice, they gave him a 2-minute warm up to get back into the play on this. You know, Thomas had a good game in here. I mean, granted, they limited the Cougars to 10 shots on goal in this game, you know. So
Yeah, but like 6 of those 10 shots were very good quality scoring chances that you should not be allowing. Girls alone in the slot, one-timers in the slot, like 6 of the 10 shots that Cap City took. If I'm a Storm defenseman, I'm ashamed I let the opponent take that shot.
And wasn't there one penalty shot in this game too?
I don't remember if that was this
No,
game.
that was a different game.
Okay, I couldn't remember which game.
We already missed that one. That was a D2 game.
Oh, I thought there was a penalty shot in the girls for them laying on the puck in the crease.
Yeah, that was in the Fusion game.
Oh, in the Fusion game. Okay.
Okay.
So the one that's coming up yet.
All right.
But Cap City, you know, being the 5 seed coming out of sectional 4 down there, they, as we said before, you know, they had played some tight games coming in and had nothing to be ashamed of in their play in this game. They end up giving up 3 power play goals in this game to end up losing it 4-1.
Well, you had mentioned the long delay at the start of the game and how that affected the team. I don't think it was so much the long delay as what actually happened was that, you know, a girl got checked into the boards and got seriously injured. And I think that put Central Wisconsin very much into a timid mode where they were almost afraid to go out and play. They are normally a very physical team, and they were afraid to go out and play that physical game, thinking that like if something else like this happens, we're going to be kicked out of this tournament.
Yeah, the Storm. There's no nice way to say this, but the Storm was, I think, far more talented than Cap City was, but they were afraid to play for 2.5 periods after that injury at, 1 minute 22nd into the game. And it showed. I mean, their talent carried them through, but I think that if you got the honest opinion out of Coach Wimmer and the players on the team, they would not be happy with how they played in this game. Yeah, I think, based on what I saw from them against Superior and what I saw from them on Saturday against Bay Area, they're probably not thrilled with how they played this game after that injury. It just threw off their whole game. But they were the more talented team, so they did end up, picking up the win. And Cap City, they were a 5 seed in their section. I don't know that we've ever had a 5 seed at the girls' tournament. Their goalie carried them through their section. They got enough goals to get there, but then when they got to state, they ran into teams that were tougher than Rock County and
But
Madison
I
Metro.
thought at the same time, I thought Cap City played as well as they could play. All things considered.
As I said, of their 10 shots, 6 of them were very high quality scoring chances.
Their goaltender gave them a pretty good
Yeah.
chance, but I mean, when you're kind of handicapped at scoring at this point, you got to score to win at state, and they weren't able to get enough shots. And when they did get quality shots, and the goalie on the other end made the save.
Claire Colmus played very well. And it's hard to play well on the kind of saves she had to make when you have to make that few.
Well, yeah, when you're just standing back there, getting cold, and then all of a sudden they come down in a 2-on-1, or there's a pass to an open player on the back door, and you have to spring into action. That's very hard. I think goalies would rather get 10, 15 shots per period than just 4.
I mean, Matt's a goalie. You know that it's rough when you're sitting back there without much to do, and then all of a sudden a high quality scoring chance comes in on you.
No doubt. I didn't have that happen very often. We usually got outshot when I was growing up. So I had to stay in the game because we did get outshot most of the time.
All right, moving on.
St. Croix Valley taking on the Bay Area Ice Bears.
And nothing against Bay Area at this point, but I think I said it in our preview that I was kind of pulling for St. Croix Valley on here, because Kendall Sunby, who's been just a fantastic player, representing, WIAA girls hockey for 4 years. The one thing missing from her resume was a state championship. And damn if she didn't try to win one by herself. Bay Area won the game 5-4. Kendall had 3 of their 4 goals and set up the other one. I mean, the first goal, she, picked off a breakout pass in the neutral zone, blew past the 2 defensemen and faked the goalie out. And, all of a sudden, St. Croix's up 1-0. And yeah, I mean, she had to have been tired from carrying her team for that game.
Yeah, and fortunately for them, the lead didn't last long as Bay Area tied it up 12 seconds later. At the end of the first period, it's 2-2. Then Kendall Sunby scores twice in the second period to put them up 4-2. But then the next 3 were Bay Area, Bay Area, Bay Area. And I wasn't watching that closely for their first and second period goals, but I can tell you that for both of Bay Area's third period goals, Kendall Sunby was not on the ice.
Yeah, I didn't notice it so much in the first and second period, but Bay Area wore the Fusion down in the third period. I had to look, and it's like, is Bay Area on the power play? Because I mean, they were just moving the puck around the St. Croix Valley Fusion zone with ease. And it was, no, they weren't on the power play, but Kendall wasn't out there. And that, yeah, without her, I mean, well, at least by the third period, they were gassed. And the couple times that she had to go off the ice to catch her breath, Bay Area scored early in that third period and just held on till the end.
In her high school career, I got to see Kendall Sunby play once. just once, and it's kind of disappointing because I sure would have liked to see her play more. But the one game I did see, boy, I came away impressed with her. I mean, she's for being the size she is and being a defender. I mean, she skates well, she shoots the puck well. I mean, she's the real deal. And
She's worth the price of admission.
oh, I agree. I totally agree. She she makes it interesting out there, and you know, she's more than happy to take on you know, any forward coming down the ice. So, as we know, Bay Area won that game, which meant Bay Area and the Central Wisconsin Storm in the championship game.
Oh, and I mean, that's a grudge match. Those two teams do not like each other. I don't think those coaches like each other. I don't think there's anybody. I don't think the fans like each other. This was like a grudge match, and they'd played two overtime games. I think a 2-1 overtime game and a 1-0 overtime game. They're both very good defensively and don't have one of those high-end scoring machine type players. So they had low scoring games early on, and this was set up to be a doozy.
And I don't know if it was just carryover from, like I told you, I was not happy with how, I can say this because they're my home team, so I'm going to be harsher on the Storm than I am on most other teams. I don't have a daughter on the team or anything, but they are my home team. I thought the Storm were awful in the first period of this game. They got outshot 11-2. They looked, I mean, they were still playing solid in their defensive zone, but when it came to breaking out or zone entry on the other end, they just looked bad. Every shot they took was wide of the net. It's like, if you're shooting that wide that often, just aim for the goalie's chest. You're bound to miss. They looked bad, but in the second period, they picked it up. They outshot Bay Area 8-6. The Storm put 9 shots on in the third. They gave up a little more, but they put 9 shots on. I think the interesting part of this game for the Storm with the 4-3 win is they got 2 very fluky goals in this game. One of them was a dump in that was bouncing end over end, and the goalie went down into what is the popular stance for stopping a dump in these days, which is you get your leg pads on the ice, you get your stick in front of your leg pads, and you have your glove ready to get the puck. You have 3 points to stop that puck from getting beneath you. Well, unfortunately, it bounced over her because it was bouncing end over end, and that's just, I mean, when I was a goalie, a bouncing puck coming in was the most terrifying thing you could ever see. I was a peewee goalie. A bantam winding up for a slap shot in the slot would have been less terrifying than a bouncing dump in. And the Storm got a goal on a bouncing dump in. And then in the third period, they got another fluky goal. Sophie Bolin corrals the puck behind the Bay Area net and just flips it up over the net out front. And a Bay Area defender goes up to catch it and put it down, and she doesn't do it cleanly, and she ends up throwing it into her own net. The 2 very, very fluky goals for the Storm.
And that one that you're talking about there ends up, turning into the difference in the game.
Yeah.
That one,
And Bay Area, I haven't, I've been following the social media the last couple of days. I haven't seen any of their fans complain about it, but they had a goal disallowed. A shot from the point on the power play. It hit off Storm defenseman Ava Rohde's skate and went into the net. And it was very obvious watching it on the replay that Bay Area had 2 skaters in the crease, one of them very deep. There was no possible way for Claire Kalmus to get across to the other side of the crease. There's no league in the world where that wouldn't have been called goaltender interference, no goal. So that was disallowed. So that probably had them a little fired up. The 2 fluky goals and the goal disallowed in a game they lost by 1 goal. That's got to be heartbreaking.
And I just want to mention the other 2 goals that Central Wisconsin, the Storm scored, because I had mentioned they don't have that, the high end player who skates for everybody and then scores a goal. but Tristan Wicklund got 2 dirty goals. The first 2 goals for the Storm. The first one was she was parked right in front of the net, and a shot from the point by Sophie Bolin, and just a perfect tip right up over the goalie's glove and into the back of the net. And the second one was there was a shot from the left side. Goalie stopped it. The puck trickled out into the crease and was lying there, and she just dove at it and smacked it into the back of the net. So what they call, dirty goals, the
Yeah.
gritty, grind them out stuff in front of the net. That's Pete Susan's type Central Wisconsin Storm thing. He didn't have the skilled offensive forwards. His strategy was, get people in front of the net, throw the puck in front of the net, see what happens.
And the thing about Tristan Wicklund, and I've said this before, is she's not an elite scorer like an Autumn Cooper or a Kendall Sunby, but she is, I think, an elite two-way hockey player as far as playing offense and defense. I was talking with Chad Holmes, who does the radio broadcasts for the Storm in Wausau West, and talking about Tristan Wicklund. She's fast, but she's not exceptionally fast. She's strong, but she's not exceptionally strong. She's a good shooter, but she's not an exceptional shooter. She's like great. She's good at everything, but she's not like great at any one thing. And being good at everything is something most hockey players aren't. If you're an exceptionally fast hockey skater in high school, at least, you're generally not strong on your skates. If you're exceptionally fast, you're usually not that big. If you're big, you can't stick handle. She's good at everything. And that's how she ended up with those dirty goals. She's willing to play that part in front of the net.
And to what Burglar was talking and you about those dirty goals, garbage goals, as a lot of us refer to them as, to pick up the garbage and put it in. And I want to, being able to watch the broadcast on TV, Brittany Spencer, former head coach for the Metro Lynx for a year or two, was doing the color on for the girls' championship game, and she loved the way she pointed that out, that how the coaches really try to encourage the players to be there with their sticks on the ice for those garbage goals. And for young players that are watching and listening, that's what you need to do. You need to be able to get in front of the net and clean up the garbage.
You'd be amazed at what happens when a player is where they're supposed to be and their stick is on the ice. It's a hard thing to teach young hockey players, but just being where you're supposed to be and having your stick on the ice does a significant portion of the work for you.
Does that have anything to do with helping to catch a pass as it comes across?
It does.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, before we wrap this up, there was some ugliness at the end of this game, and I just want to go on. All I'm going to say about it is, once again this year, the WIAA will not award a sportsmanship trophy for hockey. It's very rare that one does get awarded. Most other tournaments have, somebody wins the sportsmanship award. There isn't going to be one in hockey this year.
Let me throw this out to you guys quick. At the end of the game, you had the players that got penalized and got sent off the ice. The one girl tried to come back on, they sent her right back off.
Actually,
But there was
both
never
sides
a
tried.
handshake line. There
There was
never a
what?
handshake line for that game.
There was never a handshake line. We noticed that there wasn't a handshake line once the table came out and they started rolling out the carpet, for the awards. So we didn't see what precipitated there not being a handshake line. Like, did one team start to line up and the other one didn't?
One team did not skate out to the middle of the rink.
Yeah. So one team didn't skate out to the middle of the rink, and one team left during the middle of the awards presentation, which is not something that normally happens. So the end of this game was disappointing, to say the least.
Moving on.
Move on to Division One. Division One. First game. Edgewood and Notre Dame.
That was the second game.
I'm sorry. First game, Chippewa Falls and Brookfield. What a game.
It was a fantastic game. I think Chippewa Falls thought that the game ended at 14-10 of the second period when they took a 4-1 lead. Maybe they thought it ended at 7:39 of the third period when they took a 5-2 lead, but Brookfield played the whole game, and I don't think Chippewa Falls did.
Yeah, it was a great game. But the end of the game, if you're wearing red, those folks sad, and then exuberant if you're wearing blue, because it was a great finish. I haven't seen a game like that in a long time. Last year in the Minnesota State Championship game, a similar game in Class A, but this was a phenomenal game. Just the the comeback that Brookfield had to come down 5-2, almost what it was. I don't know what the time was. It was just almost halfway through the third is when Gus Thorpe got that fifth goal, and probably most people in Cap Ice thought the game was over.
And there's your dagger.
Yeah, that's what probably most people thought. But that's a good point. Brookfield they didn't flinch, they didn't panic, and they just kept going. And geez, they got those two goals, power play goals after Gus Thorpe scored. And then, truthfully, it was kind of chaotic in the D zone. If you look at the video, I watched the video that last, Chippewa's up 5-4, and that faceoff was 29 seconds remaining, and they were running around their zone. They had two wingers go to the, Brookfield wins the faceoff. It goes back to Brookfield's right D, and both Chippewa wingers go out to Brookfield's right D. No one covers, or out to Brookfield's right D. No one covers Brookfield's left D. And then Sparacino's left D makes a shot. I think it bounces off Chippewa's goalie's left pad, goes into the corner. And then all three forwards for Chippewa were in the corner. Nobody covered the points. They were totally out of position. And Brookfield ties it up with 14 seconds left.
Yeah, and then at 2:02 into the overtime, Cooper Simon, who had been stymied pretty much the whole game, finally, and he's their leading scorer, finally got on the board in the overtime for the win. I mean, we've seen lots of goalie pulled goals over the years at the state tournament to send a game into overtime, but I don't know that I've ever seen it happen from a team that was down 3 just 8 minutes earlier.
Yeah,
it was super fun.
Yeah, and I mean, Chippewa Falls outshot Brookfield 9-5 in the first period, 16-10 in the second period, but Brookfield just turned the tables in the third. They outshot them 11-5. It's, like I said, it looked like, Chippewa Falls just kind of quit playing.
Well, hats off, to Brookfield, really. I mean, they didn't stop. Their coaches stayed positive, and they had a good game plan. I mean, they were well prepared. When you're playing Chippewa was a run and gun team. A lot of offense, and there are a lot of goals scored in this game. But they did an excellent job. Brookfield did, and unfortunate, really, just the last minute of the game, really for Chippewa, they just didn't play a very disciplined game, in particular in their D zone. They had a chance probably to seal the victory, about 30 seconds. The reason we had that D zone face-off is because Chippewa, a player there, iced the puck. All he had to do, there was no one in front of him, was probably get a few more strides, hit the red line, dump it in. Even if he didn't score a goal on the empty net, at that point, game's probably over, because it would have been Brookfield, which was totally gassed, would have had to go all the way down the ice in a matter of about 22 to 25 seconds, enter the zone and do all that. So that was a crucial play, that icing, where it was just about 2-3 strides and you would have dumped it in. There would have been no icing call.
Yeah, but see, you were a goalie. You don't know how big that empty net looks. When you have the puck on your stick and that net is empty, man, I can hit that. That's easy.
And the further away from the net that you do it, the more impressive it is.
Yeah.
That net looks
Yeah.
looks like a soccer net down there.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I remember that, Matt, during the game that when that happened, that icing is called, when they scored that goal to tie it, you know, I pointed out and I said, yeah, I said, Matt, you know, they brought that face off back in the zone because they blew it on icing the puck.
Yeah.
And, you know, it cost them. It didn't, it's a little thing, but man, it was so big.
Yeah, I agree. But it's in the moment, you're talking about high school kids, and it's so easy for us to sit up in that suite when we're eating those glazer donuts. And to say, boy, you should have taken a few extra strides, but it's unfortunate for Chippewa. It was beneficial for Brookfield that there was that for them, their offensive zone face-off. But I was really surprised, really, at the chaos in the last 29 seconds of the D zone by some really high-end players that have played they played at a high level, played in the elite league, and I was a little surprised at that. But Cooper Simon, you said he was stymied. He was, but the first goal, that was a
Yeah.
next level patience on that assist to the big kid Templeton. It really was. The patience he had with the puck wait for the D, sucked him over, then he made that pass, and then for Templeton, a sophomore, and Simon's a sophomore too, to finish was really impressive. So Brookfield's got some really high end young players. Their top line and number 17 was sick during the state tournament weekend. So Sexton. So their top line wasn't even completely healthy. And hats off also to that face off, in the D zone for Chippewa, or the offensive zone for Brookfield, if you look at it that way. Masick wins that face off against a very high level player on Chippewa. And that set the whole play. He won that draw. So a lot of things have to go into place to win a game, and it's not easy to win these games. So congratulations to Brookfield. It was sad for Chippewa, but as a fan, if you were just there as a fan, that was probably, boy, I don't know. That had to be rank right up there in the last 5-10 years as one of the best state tournament games.
We have to go back to the podcast we did last week, and I'd have to listen to it again. I believe this was the only semifinal I got. Now I got all the finals wrong, but I believe this was the only semifinal I got. I was my heart was set on Chippewa Falls in this one, generally speaking, because they were the northern team, and Chippewa Falls is not a big city. 14,000 people. It's only a 1,400 student school. It's not a huge school. My heart was with Chippewa Falls, and when Brookfield won, I will say I was disappointed, not because I felt anything bad about Brookfield, but I was pulling for Chippewa Falls in this one.
I think all the people over in the Chippewa section were disappointed too, because boy, as that game got closer and closer in the end, it seemed like they got quiet. And then when the game winner went in, which was deflected, by the way, I thought when I looked over that they all looked like they were in shock.
Oh, they were. Yeah. This was their year, really. Probably the most talented Chippewa Falls team, maybe ever. They were stacked. I think 16 Wisconsin guys. So, in a like you said, a small town. So disappointing. But you got to move on. And for Brookfield, it was a big win for them. But it was a really entertaining game.
Okay, and then the time for us to move on then to the other semifinal game, Madison Edgewood and Notre Dame Academy.
I was really surprised that Notre Dame Academy hung 3 on Edgewood in the first period.
I think Edgewood was surprised too. It's another one where they got 2 quick goals. They got 2 goals in a minute and 1 second in the first period, 6:06 and 7:07. Andrew Osterman, who is, one of the only hockey players in the state who's shorter than MJ. And Owen Atkinson with the 2 goals there. They got those 2 quick bang bang goals. They added another one a couple minutes later, and all of a sudden they're up 3-0 at the end of the first period, and a period where shots were only 7-4. Overall, I thought both teams played really strong defensive games. Just Edgewood, and we see it all the time. And when Notre Dame plays at State. Just a couple misplays here and there, and all of a sudden they have like really high quality scoring chances,
They train.
especially in the first period. They turn them around really fast.
Yes, yes.
Well-
The transition is so quick when you with Notre Dame, and they turn that defense to offense fast.
Well, and if I remember correctly, on those two goals, they both actually came off turnovers and everything. And
Defensive zone turnovers.
yep, and they were quick shots. I mean, the goalie barely, Rowan White, excellent goaltender, but he barely had a chance to react to a couple of them. I don't even think he saw it.
No, after the first period, I thought Rowan White played awfully well, but defensively, Notre Dame was just that good in that game. And I mean, Edgewood got one, I believe a little bit later on in the game and made it 3-1. But I mean, they really didn't get a whole lot more chances after that. And you got to credit Notre Dame's defense.
Yeah, Notre Dame's defense was phenomenal. Edgewood only put 17 shots on goal, and how many of them were actually like high quality scoring chances? 3 or 4? I mean, they did not have room to operate in the offensive zone. Notre Dame really kind of shut them down in the offensive zone, which became a theme for the tournament for Notre Dame.
Yeah, no doubt about that. They're just the quickness of that team. I mean, you watch that defense. I mean, it just seems like they're always moving, and it's just like, I don't want to say a Swiss watch, but everything is their anticipation. I think, Matt, you and I were talking about this. It seems like they're looking like 2-3 things ahead.
Yeah, they're well coached, but they got some good D. 15, 12, 3, 37. I mean, there's really no drop off there. They really have probably the best. Spash was deep at D as well, but I would say of the teams I've seen, I'm not saying they have any individual player that's the best, but as a D unit, boy, they're good. The best I think in the state this year. And I tell you what, my hat's off to the Notre Dame coaches because they did a phenomenal job. I watched them play, at the end of December at their showcase that they have, and I like their team, but holy smokes, did they improve? I mean, if I had a vote for coach of the year, after the tournament, it would go to the Notre Dame coach. A first-year coach is coming in after a Corey McCracken, who is going to go down as just a real special coach in WIA history, now coaching D1, and comes in and his team improves. He's a new coach. Team gets better and he wins a state championship. So totally impressed with Notre Dame, their coaches, that team. Even if Chippewa would have beaten Brookfield, and Chippewa is number 1, I don't think anyone could have beaten Notre Dame. I mean, they were firing on all cylinders this weekend. They were. It wasn't just their D, their goaltender, which did not play well when I saw him in December. He played exceptionally well this weekend. And their forwards, they just moved the puck. I saw one sequence before, in the offensive zone. I think six passes before they got a shot. I mean, just a machine. I'd say I was thoroughly impressed with Notre Dame. Just their team, the coaching, just excellent. They deserve to win state.
Well, we should probably talk about that game then. The championship game between
Why should we
Brookfield.
talk about it? We already just handed them the trophy.
Sorry, did I jump ahead? I'm sorry, guys.
No, that's all right. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, no, that just set up the championship game between Brookfield and Notre Dame. Everybody kind of had thoughts on this one. How is Brookfield going to be able to hang with them? But I mean, they did. First and third period were very good for Brookfield. Second period, not so much. And that's when Notre Dame scored 2 goals in that second period, out shooting Brookfield 12-1 in that second period. Brookfield tried their late game heroics again, did score with less than a minute to go, but that was not enough. An empty net goal put the margin back to 2 goals for Notre Dame. But yeah, the second period was really the undoing for Brookfield. Notre Dame just controlled that second period.
And that's where I've said that in that game, coming in, the way Notre Dame plays defense, they got a good goaltender, that Augie Jones was going to have to play probably his best game of the season, and I thought he did. I mean, if you hold Notre Dame to 2 goals, I mean, you're doing something right. And he gave his team a chance to win.
He made some really high quality saves on some really
Yes,
nice scoring
yes.
chances in that game.
Yeah, he was seeing the puck. He was a different goalie in that championship game than he was the day before. That's for sure. I mean, he played really well. Yeah, I mean, and I don't know if his stats during the year, there were some games where you looked at the score sheet and his save percentage wasn't particularly good during the year, but he saved his best game for that championship, and he played. And you're right. I think as an MJ said, he gave his chance a team, and he did. He did an excellent job.
And Brookfield's got some, they've got some quality players in their sophomore group, but boy, their seniors really played well too. And, it was kind of hard. I went to the press conference afterwards and I was listening to them talk, and, you feel sorry for a set of seniors who, have seen it all coming up, and, the last kick at the can, and, you just come up a little bit short. But, the Brookfield people feel that now they've set a standard for Brookfield hockey, and maybe they did. Because this program, because I remember for all the years that I've been involved with Wisconsin prep hockey, Brookfield was just always one of those programs that's just kind of there. And now the last couple of years, they've been turning the corner. They've been getting deep into the sectionals. They get lost in sectional final last year. They win it this year. They go to the championship game at state. I mean, they're doing some things right at Brookfield. And
they got a good coaching staff there at Brookfield.
I agree. Totally agree. They, they're on the right track, I think.
And that's good. That gives those kids in Milwaukee, because Milwaukee is one of those places where, there's a AAA program there, and, that's, they got a viable option for those kids. Now they see and go, they got excellent coaching. They got a high quality program. So I would expect that Brookfield, as long as they keep their coaching staff intact, they're gonna be at state. You're gonna start seeing them, because I really think that Brookfield's going to become the power down there. Because you look at it, you got Brookfield, they got 5-6 schools, and I would really expect that Brookfield's going to be a strong team for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
To correct myself from earlier, I was right about this championship. That was the only one I was right. I said all 3 defending state champions would repeat. 2 of the 3 lost. Notre Dame won.
And I like I said before about Notre Dame, I seen them a couple weeks ago against Verona, and they were playing well against Verona. But when I watched them these 2 days, oh my God, they were a lot better these 2. I mean, they just got stronger as the season went on. And man, how you ask yourself, how could they top after last year? How could they go back and win a state championship again? They did it.
Yeah, especially you look at Notre Dame, just look at their roster, what they lost off their championship, their undefeated team. I mean, they had the seniors, was it Hunter Bill and McEntee? Were they both seniors last year?
Yep.
Real high quality players, both those kids. And then they had 3 kids. Think about this. 3 guys that would be on their roster. 2 of them have already committed D1. The third one will. So you've got Papenberg, who's playing in the North American League. He'd be a senior. He's committed to the Badgers. Drew Schock would be an 11th grader at Notre Dame. He's committed to Michigan. He's at NTDP. And Sam Capel, who will be a D1 player, just hasn't committed yet. He's in the USHL. I mean, that's just amazing to lose those 3 guys that would have been returners plus some seniors, and here you come back and win another state championship. Pretty remarkable. I don't know if there's another team that you'd have to go back maybe to a Superior back in the 90s or something that would have had talent, that type of depth of talent.
And you think about it, in the Green Bay area, they may not have been the best team all season long there. I mean, Bayport was pretty damn good, and they beat them twice. But
I mean, I watched Notre Dame against Bayport twice, and they never moved the puck offensively in those 2 games like they did at State.
okay, we done patting Notre Dame on the back.
Yeah, if we do much more of it, we're going to get a bunch of angry Facebook comments. The delete button has been working extra hard.
Okay, where are we moving on to now?
Whatever's
Read your
next
notes.
on the notes.
I've got, oh, hey, look at that. Best Western Premier Park Hotel Players of the Tournament MVPs. Burglar.
All right, before I spill the beans on the tournament player MVPs, one of the things that the WIAA always brings up is that teams try to make it to Madison. They want to get to Madison. Well, the tournament was in Middleton, and I think a lot of the hotels that people were staying at were in Middleton. We stayed in Madison. We stayed at the Premier Park Hotel right in downtown Madison. And I tell you, it's great. I mean, there's enough time between games, and there's enough stuff to do. We go back to the hotel, you don't have to drive, where are we going to eat? We walk out the door, you walk down the street, you find a place to eat. There's so much going on in downtown Madison. Yes. It's a 15-minute drive from the hotel to the arena. Big deal. Just a plug for the official state tournament headquarters of Wisconsin Prep Hockey is the Park Hotel, right next to the Capitol in downtown Madison. Anyway, our players of the week doubles as tournament MVPs this year. We'll stick with our pattern of going Division II. You heard him mentioned a couple of times during our recaps, but our Division II player of the week, tournament MVP, we give to Brendan Giertag, the goaltender from St. Mary Springs. In that 2-1 win over River Falls, he had 27 saves, and in that win over New Richmond, 41 saves, only two goals allowed. Brendan Giertag stood tall in the net for St. Mary Springs and was a big part of their state championship this year. For the girls, you may notice a theme here. Claire Collins, the Central Wisconsin Storm, also the goalie. Only had to make 9 saves in the first game against the Cap City Cougars, but was standing back there most of the time by herself, and then all of a sudden giving up a 2-on-1. But they were 9 big saves in that game. And then against the Bay Area Ice Bears, she had 28 saves and 3 goals allowed, and got knocked on her ass a couple of times in that game. So Claire Collins of Central Wisconsin Storm was our girls player of the week / tournament MVP. And on the Division I, Notre Dame Academy, might as well make it a clean sweep for the goaltenders. Leighton Jaschke, goaltender for Notre Dame Academy. In the 4-1 win over Edgewood, he had 16 saves. And in the 3-1 win over Brookfield, he had 17 saves and some big ones in that game, as Brookfield put a lot of pressure on him in that game. So a clean sweep for the goaltenders. Not that we're biased or anything. We like goaltenders. We don't like goaltender parents. But clean sweep for the goaltenders as our players of the week, tournament MVPs, because you can't win a state tournament without a good goalie.
You know how I like my pun-based headlines, right? My headline for the girls' championship game was almost remain calms. You know,
Very
like remain
creative.
calm.
Very creative, yeah.
But I went against that one. I thought that one was a bridge too far.
Okay, so now we get to what a new segment of the podcast unveiled here at the final one, the listener Q&A.
Yeah, I sent out a tweet earlier today reminding people this would be our final podcast recording of the season. And I asked them to send us some questions to opine on. So we will go through them now. The first two are related. The first from our second favorite WIAA official, Dan Cassis. Dan Cassis. Being year 2 of the venue, what were your overall thoughts and if it should continue there? Also, did you like the new schedule format? I'll start. Overall, I thought the entire operation of the tournament this year was better than it was last year. The extra space, that's the new schedule format he's talking about. The extra time between games, I think, made everything easier for the fans in attendance. You had time if you wanted to not eat rink food. You could go have lunch. You could go have dinner. If you were going to be attending multiple games, the wait outside was not nearly the same as it was because everybody who was there for the previous game was gone by the time you had to get there, which made the parking easier. It made the ice better because it had more time to set up and recover between games. Everything about the operation of the tournament at Cap Ice was better than it was last year, in my opinion.
And as far as is the main complaint that we had last year was that the arena wasn't big enough. There was simply not enough seating for the size of crowds they wanted to get here. And this year, the 3 Division 1 games were all sold out. So there were probably people who wanted to go who could not. But the Division 2 and the girls games were not sold out. So everybody who wanted to go to those games got to see those games. The rink was big enough for those games. So that wasn't a factor either. And that was the biggest one we had last year. So yeah, there were probably, I don't know how many, may have been 1,000 fans. I don't know how they determined the number, how many people that wanted to go couldn't get in, but for 6 out of the 9 games, that arena was big enough.
All
Yeah,
right.
I think that you guys are both right that it was run better this year. They learned some things after last year. And spacing it out, times I thought it was a great idea. Sometimes I thought it was too long, but you can't really say how long a game is going to last.
Well, I mean, it made it a long day for us because we go when we set up and we're actually working somewhat, through
For
every
all 9
game.
games.
We're at all 9 games and we're busy and active during all 9 games. So it made it what Thursday and Saturday were long days for us. Friday not so much, because there were only the 2 games Friday. But yeah, Thursday and Saturday were long days for us. But we're not the typical fan.
I mean,
We're
even most other media aren't there for all 9 games. They're there for their local team. So, I mean, that part I think is fine. The second question, sort of related from Drew Litrenta. Initial 2-year contract for Bob Suter Arena announced September 2022 is up. Safe to say renewal is coming, or could another new venue be coming? What are you hearing? Well, nothing new has been built since that contract was signed. I believe ground has broken on some other rinks, but none of them, or at state tournament. I don't believe Verona's new, or not Verona, Janesville's new rink is going to hold 2,500 plus people. So,
No.
I don't think that situation has changed any. The other things that we hear about other possible rinks, I'll go through a list. Laban was in use this weekend as the Badgers hosted the first round of the WCHA women's tournament. Their games against St. Thomas, and I don't know if you've been following Badger women's hockey, but the Badgers will always host in the first round of the WCHA women's tournament as long as Mark Johnson's the coach. They're not going to be traveling for an away game in that tournament. So Laban was in use. Laban, I got the actual official numbers today. Laban is also 400 people smaller than Cap Ice in terms of seating capacity. So that's not great. It also doesn't have locker rooms for all the teams. And I haven't been to a game at Laban or Cole Center in several years, but from what I remember, the parking situation there is kind of a nightmare. It's great if you live on campus, but if you're driving into the games, it can be a problem. So that's what I remember about Laban and the Cole Center. The Cole Center has some of the same problems as Laban, is that it's not always available. The locker room situation is the same since they're in the same building. And the parking is issue. Plus, it's way too big. Playing a game in front of 2,500 people in a 12,000 seat arena sucks. Nobody wants to do that. The Resch Center this weekend was in use for an art show and a concert. And Resch has said before that they can't guarantee the dates because they have other things that come in that might be worth more to them. And then Panther Arena, UW Panther Arena in Milwaukee, which is like the Alliant Energy Center, just about the same age, basically the same configuration. The Milwaukee Admirals were there on Friday. And then UW Milwaukee and UW Green Bay played a basketball game there on Saturday. Those are things that can be scheduled around and have been scheduled around in the past. Obviously, the Badgers used to play at the Alliant Energy Center, and we still managed to get the hockey tournament there. But I don't see the situation has changed any from what it was 2 years ago. So I would imagine that it's going back to Cap Ice. I would hope that it's another 2-year agreement in case one of the other rinks that's been talked about in the state materializes. Because as Bergler said, the D1 games did sell out. And I don't like the tournament being in a position where they are turning away people who want to be there. That I don't think that's a good situation.
Turning
Yeah, I
away
mean-
was a bad thing, Junior.
Yeah,
because-
Chippewa Falls wanted to bring their band and they couldn't. So, that's very unfortunate, for that
Yeah.
semifinal game. But there is a facility being built in the Eau Claire area. It's partially completed. It's multi-sport, the Valley Sports Academy. And I don't know exactly what the seating capacity, but I think that could be an optimal number. But it's not going to be completed. I don't know exactly, but it's going to be late fall, or pardon me, late summer, early fall. So probably too late before they could sign a contract. So I think you're probably right. It's probably going back to Cap Ice, and hopefully, let's cross our fingers, it's a really short-term lease in case something else.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they need to sign a 10-year agreement like they did with the Alliant Energy Center in 2012 until they find a place that can serve as a permanent home. But if they want to do 2-year agreements with Cap Ice in the interim, I think it's fine. There are things that Cap Ice could do, I think, to pretty the place up a bit. I know it's the Capitals, USHL, and the AAA team's home rink, and Middleton Youth Hockey plays there. But like, if you guys been to the Blue Line Family Ice Center in Fond du Lac, like just a small thing you can do. The steel trusses that cross their rink are painted blue instead of old flaky white and dirty looking paint like at Cap Ice and most community ice arenas. Hunt Arena at UW River Falls, which isn't big enough, but it's a beautiful rink. They took the time to paint, the big ugly air vent that goes through every ice hockey rink. They painted it red and it really pops. So there are things that Cap Ice could do, a new coat of paint on various surfaces and stuff that would make it nicer. But as far as a solution, I think it works well enough for now.
Yeah, I don't know whether it was just speculation or whether there are actual, plans for it, but one end of the arena, the end away from the concession and entry area, I mean, the back wall comes right up to the end boards. And there was, I don't know, again, I don't know whether it was just speculation or there was something actually in the works about taking out that wall and putting in seats there. Like you could put in, bunch of risers like they have at they did that at a KB Willett Arena. Did they behind one of the nets? You can put like 10 rows of seats back there going up, and you could probably add another 1,000 people that way, by doing something like that. I heard that mentioned. I don't know whether it's something that's actually in the works or just somebody thinking out loud. But that's something they could do to add. I mean, another 1,000 seats. And as far as that's not just for the state tournament, but Cap Ice is the smallest arena of any USHL team. They're supposed to have more seats for their USHL franchise, so that would help them also.
Moving on to the next question from Frank Fazer, which I don't know if is a real name, but it's awesome if it is. Do you see a time where co-ops have their own division in boys hockey? Having 10 to 15 schools feeding into a single team, drawing from 10 to 15,000 kids doesn't seem necessary anymore with the popularity of the sport, or is it time for the WIA to break up some of these super programs? First, I don't think the WIA has the authority to break up co-ops as part of their charter, as voted on by the various member schools. I don't think they can do that. Second, as far as the growth of popularity of hockey in Wisconsin, boys hockey in Wisconsin is smaller than it was in 2002, 2003. Over the last 20 years, it's actually shrunk. Girls hockey has grown about 50%. Boys hockey has actually shrunk. It shrunk from 2002 to 2003 to 2012, 2013, and now it's recovering, but it hasn't gotten back up to that level yet. If you remember in the 2004, 2005 season, there were 93 boys hockey teams in Wisconsin. I think this season was 86 or 87. And that's coming back up. It had gotten down to, I think, 83, 84. So one, the popularity of boys hockey in Wisconsin hasn't grown over the last 20 years. At best, it's stagnated. And the second problem I have with the question is that I don't think looking at school enrollment is super useful when you're looking at hockey. I think if you're looking at basketball or volleyball or some of those sports where every school in the state has a gym, I think that makes sense. I don't think it makes sense in hockey.
No, that's where I was going to go with that. In that, I mean, obviously, well, not obviously, but this question, I mean, Brookfield has what, 9 schools, I think you said?
I think it was 7,500 was their enrollment listed in the book.
Right. And that's because it has those 9 schools. But you can't look at a hockey co-op in teams of the schools. You have to look at, because
Youth
like
program.
you said, every school has a gym, every school has a basketball team, but not every school has a hockey rink. And the Brookfield team comes from the Elmbrook Hockey Association, which plays out of the ponds of Brookfield. I mean, that's their feeder program.
There
Appleton United, that comes out of the Appleton rink. The Nina Hortonville Menasha Co-op comes out of the Tri-County Ice Arena and the Fox Valley Hockey Association. Each of these co-op team, it comes from one hockey rink and one association. So there's no easy way to break something like that up.
There's really only because I did what I've been doing the last couple of weeks. I made a map. I went to Google Maps. I inputted all of the youth hockey programs that are listed by WAHA in the 6 regions. Then I inputted the host school for all of the WIA boys hockey teams. And from what I can remember now, there are only 3 boys hockey teams, 3.5 that are combining 2 youth programs. The Sheboygan Co-op is Sheboygan and Manitowoc. The Toma Sparta Co-op is Toma and Sparta, which are 2 separate youth programs. And the Northwest Iceman is the Baron Shatek youth hockey program and the Cumberland youth hockey program. Those
And that one has already started breaking itself up. That used to include Spooner,
yes.
who
So
broke
those 3
off.
are like the only 3. And then
Yeah.
I looked because most of the big co-ops are down in Milwaukee. So you've got the West Bend Co-op in Washington County. Washington County is the 11th largest county in the state. They only have 1 youth hockey program in that county. It's roughly the same size as Marathon County, where we have 3. We have Wausau, Everest, and Mosinee. Washington County only has 1 youth hockey program. It would be real nice if, West Bend is in the northern half of the county. It'd be real nice if they added one down in the Germantown area. If somebody could build a rink and get a youth hockey program there, that would be great. It would take 10 years before they're seeing numbers for a high school team or anything like that. And then it's going to, drop down the Washington County one for a while, but that would be great. Waukesha County, 3rd largest county in the state. They have 3 youth hockey programs. They have Arrowhead, they have Elmbrook, as you mentioned, and they have, I believe it's Waukesha County youth hockey. And that feeds 5 teams. Arrowhead, KMMO, Waukesha, Brookfield, and the Muskego Co-op, which also pulls from Shaw in Milwaukee County. Population-wise, you could absolutely get another youth hockey association, maybe 2 in Waukesha County. But I don't know if you've looked at land values between Waukesha and New Berlin, but the property taxes on a hockey rink in Waukesha and New Berlin would be astronomical. The fees to play hockey there would be astronomical. So you could maybe get one down in Mukwonago or Muskego, and get a new association that way. Elmbrook, they could do what Eau Claire does or what Wausau does and feed 2 high school hockey teams. They have the numbers for it, probably, but if you look, it's not going great for Wausau and Eau Claire right now either. Other than when Sam Stang and Zach Erdahl came through, Eau Claire North hasn't had a really good team in quite a while. Eau Claire Memorial is where the hockey players seem to go. Wausau East is a co-op now, and the really good hockey players are at Wausau West. I have to believe that if Brookfield, Elmbrook, started feeding 2 different high school hockey programs, that they would all find their way to Brookfield East or Brookfield Central or whichever school it happens to be. So I just, the problem isn't that you need to break up these co-ops. The problem is that there need to be more youth hockey associations in Milwaukee County, Washington County, Waukesha County. There need to be more. Racine County does not have an indoor ice arena. They're working on one right now. They're doing a capital campaign to try and build one. And the only reason they're doing that is because they got a $5 million anonymous donation. And they're trying to get to 10, and they haven't gotten there yet. Walworth County, which is 15th largest in the state, right between Eau Claire County and Fond du Lac County. Lake Geneva, they don't have an indoor hockey rink. They have the people, they don't have an indoor hockey rink. So the problem isn't these giant co-ops that I don't think anything that the WIA can do anything about. There just needs to be more youth hockey programs. There is a limit on how much a youth hockey program can actually handle. And I don't think there's a program in the state with more than 3 bantam teams or 5 peewee teams or anything like that. There's an upper limit, and a lot of these associations are at it. And if you want those schools to break up and to stop being co-ops, you need more rinks and you need more associations. It's not a WIAA problem. Anybody else have to add to that?
And as for the co-op having their own tournament, no, I don't see that happening.
Nope. And then our last question comes from the Wanakee Ice Pond. What does the competitive balance change coming to hockey really mean big picture? There's an article from the Rink Live about Hermantown ruining that in northeastern Minnesota, which Hermantown has. So for those of you that aren't familiar, The WIAA member schools voted 265 to 112 to implement a new set of competitive balance rules for next year. They go into effect next year. They ruled for a 3-year rolling period based on your postseason performance. You are awarded points. If you make your sectional final in hockey, you get a point. If you make it to state, you get 2 points instead of 1. If you make it to the championship game, you get 3 points instead of 2. And if you win, you get 4 points. You can earn up to 4 points in a season. So this year, St. Mary Springs got 4 points. Last year, they got 1 point. 2002, they got 3 points. Or 2022, they got 3 points. So for the last 3 years, they got 8 points, which according to the WIAA's new rules should push them up to Division 1. Same for New Richmond. Over the last 3 years, they've gotten 7 points. So they should move up to Division 1. That's what that means for hockey is exactly what they said, what they were referencing in that article about Hermantown, is you can't create a Division II dynasty in Wisconsin if these rules are enforced. There is an appeals process, and if that becomes a joke, that's one thing. But if the rules are enforced, you cannot create a Division II dynasty in Wisconsin.
Right, and that was pretty much what anybody that we talked to down there, whether it was LeVar Ridgway or Brian Brandt, the president of the Coaches Association, they all expect that next year New Richmond and St. Mary Springs will be Division I. And I don't recall whether that goes for a 2 or a 3-year period.
You keep your points.
Oh,
for
okay.
a rolling 3-year period. So the
Okay.
4 points that Springs earned this year lasts through the next 2 years. So if they make it to state just once in the next 2 years, they'll be up for 4 years at least. Because they'll have 3 and 2 and then whatever the other one is. So they'll still be at 6.
Yeah.
And what difference does it make with New Richmond? Because they're already pretty much play a D1 schedule.
No, it doesn't matter what schedule they play. We're talking about for the state tournament.
Yeah, it only
Right.
it
Playoffs.
doesn't check it changes their playoffs because they move from playing Amory and Rice Lake and whoever else is in their section right now to playing Superior and Hudson and Eau Claire Memorial and Spash, although
And being
Spash
stuck.
is probably going to end up moving with realignment because Spash always moves whenever teams move around and there's realignment because they're right in the middle of the state, so they're conveniently go anywhere. So they'll have a tougher road.
Do you think there's going to be some sectional realignment this year?
Well, there has
It'll
to be.
have to be.
Ashland and Shawano are for sure dropping teams from their co-op, and they'll move down. And instead of teams going up based on enrollment, New Richmond and Springs will go up unless they have some kind of successful appeal. And given that Springs has won 3 state championships in 5 years, I can't imagine they will have a successful appeal unless the appeals process, as I said, is a joke. Those two will move up, and then you have to realign because it's not a 1-for-1 based on sections. I mean, New Richmond and Ashland is a 1-for-1 based on sections, but Springs and Shawano isn't. So yeah, there'll be. I mean, it's not going to be a huge realignment, but 2 or 3 teams are probably going to move, and the best candidate to move is always Spash or Wisconsin Rapids because they're right in the middle of the state. They could play all 4 sections easily enough. But that's what that means for hockey. There will be no dynasties. As long as the rules are enforced and the appeals process isn't a joke, there will be no dynasties in Division II. And if what they're trying for in Division II is to give small schools a chance to actually compete, this seems to be the way to go. Reading through the rules and without them having been tested in actuality, I think 6 points over 3 years seems kind of low to me. That means if you win your section 3 years in a row, you're going up. You don't have to win a game at state. If you win your section 3 years in a row, you're going up. If you win at state and then win your section one other year in a 3-year span, you're at 6 points, you're going up. 6 points seems maybe a little low, but see what happens.
As soon as you said that, I just hearkened back to what you were saying about Tomahawk. Tomahawk should be able to win this section with the young team they have for the next 2 years.
Yeah, so Tomahawk, which is
One of the
by
smallest schools
by enrollment,
playing hockey.
the third smallest of the 86 boys program. Tomahawk is the third smallest. They could go Division One in 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah, they'll have to modify that. 6 points that's too low.
That is
Points,
too low.
it seems low to me.
But they just came up with the rules. I would bet that if that happens to Tomahawk, they'll appeal. And I think even here in this brief discussion, those numbers don't make sense. There's 6 is too low. You can't have, that doesn't make sense. They're going to have to modify that up to, I don't know, 8, 9 points. 6 is too low.
I think 6 makes more sense in the sports that have 4 sections or 5 or 4 divisions or 5 divisions. I think in that 6 makes sense. You're not going from Division 5 to Division 1. You're going from Division 5 to Division 4, and you can't jump more than 1 division in a year. So I mean that makes sense to me. In hockey with just 2 divisions, 6 points is tough. That's really tough.
Well, I think someone, if it's Brian Brandt, BJ Brandt, someone, or even us, if we point that out to LeVar, because they, like you said, they made the rule for just sports in general. It doesn't quite fit that point structure. The overall concept, that the strategy of the competitive balance makes sense, but the points, they're going to have to tweak that for hockey.
Yeah, and you mentioned, somebody pointing that out to LeVar. I got nothing against Tom Shafransky, who was, in that place before LeVar, but LeVar seems to be much more willing to take input and suggestions from various sources than previous administrators at the WIAA ever were. Even though he says out of all the programs he runs, the most headaches he gets are from hockey. He does understand that hockey is a different kind of animal, and he does seem willing to listen to reason and other sources more than the WIAA has in the past.
So those are the 4 questions we got from Twitter when I put the call out. There were other variations on those same questions, so I just picked the 4 that came in first and made the most sense.
Getting late, guys.
Oh, we only got one thing left. This is Dell's last podcast.
Del, I guess you have the floor.
As I've told you guys before, thanks a lot for allowing me to be part of this over the past few years. I've had a lot of fun. I've got to meet a lot of great people. But more than any of that, I think between us over the past few years, we've done good work, especially with the awards and being able to bring recognition to the high school players. And that's what this is all about to me, is making sure that these players get recognized. And I just want to thank you all for that.
Well, it's been a pleasure working with you, Dell. We're going to miss you, and not just because, you're in a central part of the state and can cover games that we can't. We're going to miss you because we all love you very much. And, your loss is going to be noted by us and by, our followers and especially on the girls' side, the coaches and the players there. You will be missed.
Yeah, the girls coaches aren't going to like it when I come with my iron fist. I don't have that soft touch that you do. I'm going to lay down the law and tell them, this is how things are going to be.
No, Del, it's been, I've enjoyed every moment of it. It's been fun to watch you and see how you handle the girls' side of high school hockey. And as I've watched it, I've also found it to be more than just the boys. The girls are also there too, and they put together a good product, and that's been shown at state. So you've promoted well, and I've enjoyed working with you, and I wish you nothing but the best.
Thanks, guys.
I guess, wow, you gonna go hang out with Trasher now?
Do we have a Wisconsin
Uh,
Prep Hockey retirement home?
Uh, you guys know that I'll be kept busy because I'll still be. I get kept busy with the Bikers Against Child Abuse, and that's started taking up a little bit more of my time.
And your
Uh,
political career.
that's done. I did not run for reelection.
Well, and you're grandpa now, and you got grandkids all over.
Number 5 will be here in July.
Holy moly.
But yeah, it's like I said, it's been fun. I do think that here, a week from this upcoming weekend, I'm still going to try to catch a little bit of the boys' senior class tournament going on over in the Dells, the weekend of St. Patty's Day. So I'm sure that over in the Dells somewhere there's going to be some green beer having to get drank. But yeah, thanks, guys.
Best wishes, Dell, in your retirement.
Thanks, man. Oh, they'll keep you busy next year, man.
He hasn't officially committed to us yet. We didn't want to put him on the spot during the podcast.
No.
So all fans send the emails to Matt Carey, requesting that he join the prep hockey to help cover the games next year.
And remember that all hate mail still goes to Trasher at wisconsinprephockey.net.
That's fact.
I mean, you guys have all the fans have had a great opportunity to see some of Matt's writing style with the player spotlights and everything. And just imagine he takes that writing talent to help write up some games, more game summaries next year. He's got a great talent there, and great time to share it with the fans.
Thank you for those.
I'll tell you what,
positive
Matt,
comments.
I don't know if you and I I mean, I'd heard of you, but I don't know if you and I had crossed paths before until this weekend.
It's possible, yeah.
And I'll tell you what, as much as I talked to you, I learned, a lot about things behind the scenes and, things that go on in other parts of the state. And I enjoyed that very much.
Yeah, I enjoyed being there with you guys. Enjoyed sitting next to you during those games. So thank you.
Well, I don't want to break up the love fest, but Matt is a goalie, so it's only so trustworthy.
He's all right.
Yeah, you can't trust us. We get hit in the head too much.
I mean, the Division 1 championship game, MJ was sitting between Kirk Dovenspek and Matt Carey, and I'm like, good God, MJ is going to think he's a goalie by the end of this game.
Life was pretty doggone good talking to those guys because they both have pretty good hockey minds. So to get stuff from Kirk, and ask him some things, and Matt pointing some stuff out. I mean, you see the game a different way sometimes.
That was a good weekend.
And just think there's probably 363 more days till the next championship. That's just
I'll have a headache from the last one.
And the one thing I really missed, and you can all vouch for me because you know what a people person I am. The one thing I really missed was at the Alliant, we had our suite there, and unless MJ was doing an interview, the door was always open and people could walk by and come drop in and see us at any time. This year, the Cap Ice Gestapo was not letting anybody that didn't have the proper credentials, get back into the area that we were at. So we didn't, people couldn't stop by and say hello and chat with us like they have been able to in the past. And that was unfortunate, because you know how much I like talking with people.
I miss having the people come by and say hello and usually there are people that listen every week to shows like this. I mean, they pump our tires a little bit, tell us how good we are and stuff like that.
Well, it's better than Facebook telling us how much we suck.
Yeah, that's for sure.
All right, wrap us up, MJ.
Okay, for the fellas, Matt Carey, thank you so much. I've enjoyed talking with you, and I hope there's a lot more to come.
Thank you.
For Junior, from Bill Senior, and Dell, best of luck. I'm Mike Hammett. We'll see you next season on This Week in Wisconsin Prep Hockey.